It's time for Mr.
Fundamental.
Presented by no one.
To succeed in the NBA, teams are always trying to get ahead and look into slight advantages they could get. There's the analytics movement to focus on threes and shots at the rim, Sam Hinkie's tanking to get higher picks, or the Warriors dynasty that made switching and 5-outs popular. Whether it's on the court or off the court, teams are trying to find that edge. The most recent example comes on the defensive end. Instead of focusing on one defensive scheme, NBA teams used a mixture of them to keep their opponents on their toes. I made a similar video to this a few years ago, talking about how zone defense is the best strategy against 5-outs, and the strategy I'm covering today might be able to stymie the best isolation scorers in the league in James Harden and Luka Doncic, so let's get into it. This defensive strategy is called the wall defense, and has been used in EuroLeague for a while. Some of you might recognize this clip from my last video on Luka. The concept is pretty simple. In the event of a pick and roll, the defender one pass away will jump in front of the ball handler to stop the penetration. The on-ball defender will sprint and recover on the helper's man. A quick look at what most NBA defense do nowadays. They've already implemented parts of this. They will get the defender to jab one pass away to stop the penetration, then recover back to their man. From this point, Butler's option is to either pass it off, take big long strides to get to the rim but giving Gasol time to meet him there, or take and miss the contested mid-range jumper. The wall strategy takes this concept further. The big can focus on recovering on the roller, while the helper comes over to stop penetration. Since the helper is coming from the strong side, it will deter the drive the other way, and funnels him towards the big. Now some could argue that this is a wide open corner 3, but the ball handler's change of direction makes this pass to the corner much more difficult, and the trajectory of this pass could also be intercepted by the primary defender. Here's a better example of closing up to the shooter one pass away. The helper rotates early, while the primary defender covers for him. The only possible pass is a lob over the defender, but this will give time for the defense to recover. A backdoor cut is an option, but the two weak side defenders could help as well. The offense actually does that a little later, and the defense rotates perfectly to get the interception. In the primary ball handler's perspective, they collapse the defense by beating their man and sucked in the help defender, meaning a spot-up shooter is open. What they don't know is that their original defender is sprinting their cover out on the shooter, leading to the interception. Kicking it out early might be an option, but look at where the position of the primary defender and helper is. The primary defender is right behind the ball handler, and already moving towards the spot-up shooter, making him within reach of this passing lane. The helper is coming from the shooter, so his hands are also in the passing lane, and all this makes it a tight window for that pass. Even Luka had trouble with this strategy. First, the defense implements a hedge to stop a pull-up 3. The helper steps up one pass away, and that gives the big man some time to get in front of the roller. It's easy to miss, but the defense almost got a steal here, and the primary defender recovers out on the shooter. The fumble did get the helper out of position, but the defense is still in good position to get a stop. What I found very interesting is that this was used in the NBA back in 2013, when Mike Woodson was coaching the Knicks. In his 2 full seasons there, the Knicks defense was below average. While his strategy was criticized back then, it was the execution that was at fault. Here JR helps, but he sagged back on the drive rather than closing up this gap, giving this much space for the kickout. Felton did his best to interfere with the pass and goes for the closeout. Let's see if you guys could tell what went wrong in this possession. At first, JR gets caught up in the screen rather than chasing over, creating this space between him and his defender. It's good that Shumpert rotates early to help, but JR's initial mistake makes this an easier pass. Add in that Melo didn't zone up the 2 defenders, they give up an open look. To make things worse, this wall strategy should keep the big in front of the roller, but their defensive lapses lets Kaman get the putback. The Knicks weren't on the same page on this possession. Novak executes the wall, but Shumpert dies on the screen. Melo steps up to help the penetration, similar to switching the screen. This leaves the shooter one pass away, open for the quick triple. Late rotation is another drawback. Here Melo steps over late, but JR does his part by recovering to the corner shooter. This whole defensive strategy is to prevent penetration, but by the time Melo picks up the driver, Meeks is already at the rim. This forced an extra rotation all around and another top of the key triple. There were a few occasions of NBA teams using some of the wall principles dating back to the 2020 season, although it is usually in a freelance decision rather than a coordinated scheme. Coming down the floor, the Clippers screwed up their defensive coverage, but Morris saved their asses by rotating over. With Morris's position, Luka intended to drive right, but realizes he'll be sandwiched between Harrell and Morris. He decides to kick it out, but PG picks up the shooter, and offense has to reset. Tatum gets beaten off the dribble, Kemba steps in to stop penetration, and Tice is on pursuit as well. All that VanVleet knows right now is that Lowry is probably open, since Kemba rotated, and Tatum is probably trailing him and trying to recover. He didn't realize Tatum picked up Lowry, and now the offense has to generate a shot with 7 seconds left against a set defense. Just for a contrast, let's check out what happens without this scheme against the same offensive formation. See how Ibaka shows up higher to prevent a pull-up 3. This allows Williams to get in front of him and force this weak side rotation, giving up a wide open triple. If they use the wall principles, OG will step up on the drive and VanVleet will pick up OG's original man. This will allow Ibaka to stay ahead of Williams, and Powell could stick with the weak side shooter as well. The Celtics showed some of this in this year's playoff run. Drummond beats Williams off the dribble, Horford steps up and picks him up. Grant switches off to Horford's original man. While the kickout got through, the defense is in great position to contest this shot. If this was actually implemented as a scheme, it's possible to stop the best scorers in the league. Same offensive formation when Harden joins the Nets. The big commits to the drive, the weak side defender doesn't want to leave Shamit, and the roller gets the dunk. In the pick and roll, see how far Giannis rotates over to stop the penetration. This pass could have been eliminated by Forbes zoning up the 2 shooters and buying enough time for Bledsoe to sprint towards Green after trailing Harden. None of that happens, and they give up the triple. One of the hardest possessions to guard is either a Luka or Harden isolation near the wing with 5 out spacing. 1 on the strong side corner and 3 on the weak side. On the drive, he gets a step on Brooks. JV is late to rotate over because of Tucker's gravity, and Harden gets all the way to the rim. If the defender sagged back a little to prevent penetration, Harden will just pull up for a triple. Here's the same formation, but Tice rotates earlier to stop Harden's drive, but this puts him out of position to contest the Tucker 3. Once Ojale was beat, he could sprint towards Tucker and close up this passing window. This would allow Tice to fully rotate over and cover Harden. An important thing to keep in mind is that Harden's threat level in this area is much lower. First, it's going to take Harden 2 steps back to get behind the arc, so a step back here is going to result in a mid-range jumper. Second, Harden picked up his dribble and he'll probably try to get to the rim. Rotating a bigger player over to contest floaters or layup is desirable. In the event he didn't pick up his dribble, there should be plenty of time for a switchback if he brings it back out, or this whole wall strategy could repeat again for the next ISO. Once Tatum gets beaten here, Hayward has already rotated over to stop the drive. This was an easier choice with a poor shooter and Westbrook 1 pass away. Let's assume this was a respectable shooter. Tatum should sprint towards the shooter while Hayward picks up Harden. His recovery path will be within reach of the kickout, so it eliminates that option. While this is still within range of a Harden step back, Harden doesn't know what's going on behind him, so we think Tatum is trailing, so step back isn't an option. A perfect possession could look like this. The offense runs a sideline pick and roll to extend the distance between the ball and the shooter 1 pass away. This also means the distance for this defender to recover is even further. The defense perfectly zones up the weak side to buy time for the primary defender to recover. Just like that, they closed up every opening. Defenses have gotten very creative over the years to stop offensive stars like Harden and Luka, and this wall strategy might be worth a try. While Harden and Luka can still find ways around it, this could prevent their bread and butter moves and counters. The step back is eliminated, the kick out could be intercepted, and the drives to the rim will be met by an in-position defender. That's it from me, and I'll see you guys next time.